I'm now reading about German Foreign Minister threatens sanctions against Ukraine. Ukraine. German Foreign Minister Frank-Walter Steinmeier has said sanctions should be used as a threat against Ukraine's government unless it finds a political solution to its long-running, at times violent, dispute with the opposition. The comments from the Social Democrat minister strike a different tone from the line taken so far by conservative Chancellor Angela Merkel, who said last week there was no question of sanctions at the moment. I think we must now show sanctions as a threat, Steinmeier told Germany's ARD television in an interview late on Monday, adding that Germany had to be ready to opt for these measures if the situation did not improve. Ukraine has been hit by more than 2 months of unrest following the decision by President not to pursue trade and other deals with the European Union. Ukraine is now a tug-of-war between Russia and the West. The United States and the EU are the preliminary discussions about possible financial assistance for Ukraine once a new government is formed, a U.S. State Department spokeswoman said on Monday. Out! I'm now reading about Macau feels strained during lunar holiday influx. In a sense, from the James Bond movie Skyfall, the British super spy arrives in Macau aboard a small raft that glides under a arched bridge, past hundreds of floating paper lanterns, and through an illuminated dragon head to reach a casino. When I made the trip to the tiny Chinese gambling makeup at the height of the Lunar New Year holiday on Monday, it was decidedly less glamorous. I joined crowds of fellow travelers, mostly from mainland China, cramming into an aging ferry terminal in Hong Kong to board a hydrofoil ferry for the hour-long trip. Elsewhere, tens of thousands jammed border checkpoints with mainland China. The holiday, which began Friday, is the busiest time of year for the former colony, which Beijing regained control of in 1999, and is the only place in China where casinos are legal. Celebrations include fireworks, lion dances, and parades, but the main draws are the 35 casinos that have made Macau the world's biggest gambling market. While tens of millions of mainland Chinese visit Macau annually, numbers surge during the holiday, often referred to as the world's biggest migration. When Chinese believe their luck at the baccarat table is strongest, the result is extreme congestion on many stops on the tourist trail in the city of just 30 square kilometers, leaving infrastructure straining and local residents simmering. I've visited Macau dozens of times over the past few years from a base in Hong Kong, but have avoided going during the Lunar New Year holiday. This year, I decided to brave the hearts of Chinese gamblers to see in the ear of the horse. From an auspicious perspective, this is the time of the year to come here to win, said Chris Winners, managing director of Hoggo Marketing, which works with casinos. He also runs another business bringing tourists to town for big events. The feeling is almost like they can lose. You have to win. He cautioned that when visiting Macau during the holiday, there are more cons and pros. Travel is a nightmare. Prices are inflated and hotels are full. Authorities in Macau, population 598,000, were expecting 2.6 million visitors over the week-long holiday period, according to local broadcaster TDM. The influx is part of a broader tide of visitors drawn by the breakneck expansion of Macau's casino industry over the past decade. About 29 million people visited Macau last year, most from mainland China, and their gambling helped the city rake in $45 billion in casino revenue last year. That's about seven times the amount of the Las Vegas Strip, and more even than the total earned by all casinos in the U.S. Foreign operators including Sands China, the Asian arm of U.S. billionaire casino company, are spending millions to build a slew of new mega resorts in Cotai, reclaimed swampland between two islands. That's Asia's version of Las Vegas Strip. Resorts already there include Sands China's flagship, the Nautian Macau, where the vast gambling floor was thrown even though it wasn't yet noon. So was the mall upstairs, where shops line the Fox Canal, complete with singing gondolas. The crowds were too much for me, so I hopped on a free shuttle bus back to Peninsula Macau to see two of the most popular tourist sites, Square and St. Paul's Church, part of the city's historic center, granted World Heritage status in 2005. The cobblestone square's pastel neo-classical buildings give off a vibe, a reminder of centuries spent under rule. From here, it's usually an easy walk through winding narrow lanes to the hilltop ruins of St. Paul's. Not today. Police have set up crowd control barriers and rerouted traffic near the square. The lanes are jammed with tourists. At one point, it is shoulder to shoulder. The congestion infuriates some residents. The ruthless pace of mainlanders' conflicts with the local way of life. Newspaper vendor Wen Lai Hokei told the South China Morning Post of Hong Kong. Paradoxically, while visitor numbers are up, casino profits may not get a bump. Industry insiders say the very rich people with the highest net worth will avoid going during Chinese year, said deputy chairman deputy chairman of Success Universe Group, which runs Point 16, a casino resort where attractions include a Michael Jackson-themed gallery featuring one of his white crystal-studded globes. Instead, analysts said wealthy Chinese are now opting to visit a week or more after the holiday starts. These high rollers, whose visits are arranged by junket operators, account for about 2/3 of Macau's total casino revenue. At a casino label near Macau's downtown, gamblers streamed the crowded casino floor, where minimum bets at some tables went as high as 1,000 Hong Kong dollars, also known as 129 US dollars, pricey by Vegas standards. Cherry Yang, a hotel worker from and novice gambler, placed a few bets. I said, "Just tell me what's the easiest game to play," said Yang, who was dear to the dice game Sic Bo. "I lost 2,000 in 15 to 20 minutes," she said with a chuckle. Though unfazed by the crowds, Yang and husband Alain complained about waiting an hour for a cab to go from the to Fisherman's Wharf, a theme park, a journey they could have done in 30 minutes by foot. Let's do some Africa news. Let's read this. I'm now reading about South Africa platinum wage talks to resume. Government broke talks to end a South African platinum mine strike. Now in its second week, will restart Tuesday as firms report losses totaling as much as 36 million a day. Around 80,000 members of the Radical Association of Mine Workers and Construction Union, AMCU, down tools on January 23th, calling for a minimum monthly wage of 12,500 rand, almost double their current pay. That Thursday, they rejected a 3-year deal from Anglo American Platinum, Impala, that offered a roughly 7% annual increase. Discussions will resume today, an industry spokesman told AFP. South Africa produces 80% of the world's platinum, used in products from catalytic converters to computer hard disks to dental fillings. Around 134,000 people are employed in the sector. AMCU has written the strike could go on for a month if no agreement is reached. Companies which have seen their revenues plummet in recent years are looking for a long-term agreement in the hope of preventing what have become regular stoppages. But they insist drastic wage increases are impossible and claim that the current pay package is more than a basic entry-level wage. The wage increases demanded by AMCU are unaffordable by industry. To push more of industry into loss-making territory, said South African Chamber of Mines economist Roger Baxter. The strikes are costing Africa's largest economy, 33 million a day in lost production. He told a continental mining conference in Cape Town. Mining labor costs have more than doubled in South Africa in the past 2 decades, Baxter added. Current wage demands date back to violent mass wildcat strikes in 2012, which resulted in a police shooting that 34 strikers on one day at mine. But industrial action has become more peaceful since then. Baxter said, a statement echoed by Mining Minister Susan. We have restored the rule of law, peace and stability in this industry. Told the conference. This development debunk the myth that labor laws in South Africa lack flexibility and are only created to protect workers, she said. No, I want to do some health. I'm now reading about FDA launching anti-smoking campaign aimed at youth. The Food and Drug Administration is using aids that depict yellow teeth and wrinkled skin to show the nation's at-risk youth the costs associated with cigarette smoking. The federal agency said Tuesday it is launching a $115 million multimedia education campaign called The Real Cost that's aimed at stopping teenagers from smoking, encouraging them to quit. Advertisements will run in more than 200 markets throughout the U.S. for at least 1 year, beginning February 11th. The campaign will include ads on TV stations such as MTV and print spots in magazines like Teen Vogue. It also will use social media. Our kids are the replacement customers for the addicted adult smokers who die or quit each day, said the director of the FDA Center for Tobacco Products. And that's why we think it's so important to reach out to them, not to lecture them, not to throw statistics at them, but to reach them in a way that will get them to rethink their relationship with tobacco use. Zeller, who oversaw the anti-tobacco truth campaign while working at the nonprofit African Legacy Foundation time in the early 2000s, called the new campaign a compelling, provocative, and somewhat graphic way of grabbing the attention of more than 10 million young people ages 12 to 17 that are open to or are already experimenting with cigarettes. According to the FDA, nearly 90% of adult smokers started using cigarettes by age 18 and are more than 700 kids under 18 become daily smokers each day. The agency aims to reduce the number of youth cigarette smokers by that is 300,000 within 3 years. While most teens understand the serious health risks associated with tobacco use, they often don't believe the long-term consequences will ever apply to them, said FDA Commissioner Margaret Hamburg. Will highlight some of the real costs and health consequences associated with tobacco use by focusing on some of the things that really matter to teens: their outward appearance and having control and independence over their lives. Two of the TV ads show teens walking into a corner store to buy cigarettes. When a cashier tells them it's going to cost them more than they have, the teens proceed to tear off a piece of their skin and use pliers to pull out the tooth in order to pay their cigarettes. Other ads portray cigarettes as a man dressed in a dirty white shirt and khaki pants, bullying teens, and another shows teeth being destroyed by a ray gun shooting cigarettes. The FDA is evaluating the impact of the campaign by following 8,000 people between the ages of 11 and 16 for 2 years to assess changes in tobacco-related knowledge, attitudes, and behaviors. The campaign, announced Tuesday, is the first of a series of campaigns to educate the public about the dangers of tobacco use. In 2011, the FDA said it planned to spend about $600 million over over 5 years on the campaigns aimed at reducing deaths and disease caused by tobacco, which is responsible for about 480,000 deaths a year in the U.S. Tobacco companies are footing the bill for the campaigns through fees charged by the FDA under a 2009 law that gave the agency authority over the tobacco industry. Future campaigns will target young adults at ages 18 to 24, and people who influence teens, including parents, family members, and peers. Other audiences of special interest include minorities, gays, people with disabilities, the military, pregnant women, people living in rural areas, and low-income people. I'm now reading about Hoffman among thousands of addiction victims. Philip Hoffman suffered from a chronic medical condition that required ongoing treatment. An admitted drug addict who first sought professional help more than 2 decades ago, Hoffman apparently succumbed to his illness with an overdose despite a return to rehab last March. A father of three with a thriving career, the Oscar winner died Sunday with a needle in his arm and badges of what appeared to be heroin nearby. New York City medical examiners were conducting an autopsy autopsy of Hoffman's body Monday, as investigators scrutinized evidence found in his apartment, including at least 4 dozen plastic packets, some confirmed to have contained heroin, some confirmed to have contained heroin. His death, which came after a long period of sobriety that ended last year. The tragedy of drug addiction is in our society, said Dr. Nora, director of the National Institute on Drug Abuse. Here, you have an extraordinarily talented actor who had the resources, who had been in treatment, who obviously realized the problem of drugs and had been able to stay clean, she said, adding that Hoffman's case shows how devastating addiction can be. Success has no more bearing on drug addiction than it does on heart failure, doctors say. Both can be fatal without consistent care, and while rehab may be part of treatment, it's no antidote. Amy Winehouse and Corey Maltese had both been to rehab before eventually dying from overdoses. Addiction is a chronic, progressive illness. Addiction is a chronic, progressive illness. No one can be cured, said Dr. A psychiatrist and addiction medicine specialist who works as a professor at USC's School of Medicine and is founding chief of Inspire Treatment Center. If someone is suffering from addiction, they cannot relax at any time. The brain mystery changes, so these people are prone to relapse. The younger a person begins using drugs, the more likely he is to develop an addiction. Volkow said Hoffman wasn't specific about his poison when he told CBS 60 Minutes in 2006 that he used anything I could get my hands on before cleaning up with rehab at age 22. He said in interviews that year that he sought treatment for heroin addiction after 23 years of sobriety. Addiction causes chemical changes in the brain that remain long after a person stops using a substance, said who described the condition as a chronic disease with a very long duration. Abstinence or substitute medication is often required to prevent addiction. To prevent the addict from losing control around his desired substance, and just as someone who hasn't ridden a bike for 20 years will still know what to do with the bicycle, an addicted brain exposed to its drug, even after a long break, will relapse to its old levels. Studies have replicated this in animals. Volkow said, give them a tiny amount and they immediately escalate to same levels of drug taking as before, which is why addiction is considered a chronic disease and overdose is common. Hoffman's is a story that unfortunately is not infrequent to have an individual who takes drugs in his 20s and stops for 20 years, relapse in his 40s, and overdose, he said. It's not clear what motivated the actor's return to drugs, and what, if any, ongoing treatment he received after his rehab stint in 2013. Director action. The director, who was with Hoffman at the Sundance Film Festival last month to promote the film A Most Wanted Man, said Hoffman's death came as much as a shock to me as to anyone else I'd imagine. He said that when he spent time with the actor 2 weeks ago, he seemed in a good place despite some issues he had to deal with, but Karbygin did not elaborate. Hoffman spoke to the Associated Press about the film at the festival, where he was dogged by paparazzi, but otherwise calm. The actor, who could transform so convincingly into such varied characters on stage and screen, was generally a private person, something he said when with the job.